y'all, and welcome to another exciting episode of Down Home Dirt, the show where we dive deep into the journey of entrepreneurship with those who took the plunge and all the ups and downs that come with it. My name is Dusta, and today I am joined with Taylor Frederick with Taymark Construction. Welcome, and thank you for recording today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to share your story. We're in season 2. It's all about women's stories, and I found out that you are a general contractor, which is really exciting because it's something I wanted to do. So I wanted to share your journey. So we can dive right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, where are you from and how did you end up in the triangle?
So I grew up outside of Charlotte in a town called Salisbury, really a even smaller part of that area called Faith. And I came to school for boarding school at the School of Science and Math in Durham when I was 15. And then after that, I went to school at State and just never left the area. So at this point, I've been in the Triangle area longer than I lived where I grew up. So I really consider the Triangle to be my home. Definitely have a stronger preference for this area. And right now, we're living in Cary. And yeah, like you said, I'm a general contractor. I uh, tested for licensure for commercial construction, which also includes residential construction, in August of 2022. But I've been in the industry since 2017.
Congratulations. That's exciting.
Thank you.
My best friend lives over in Concord. She grew up in Kannapolis, so I completely understand the wanting to get out.
Yes, yeah. I actually was born in Concord, and yeah, it's. I think that they've been working on the roads in that area since before I was born.
Sounds like a lot like the place I was from in Florida. The one
Yeah.
thing you could always guarantee was the construction. So, what inspired you to pursue a career as a general contractor? And were there any pivotal moments that shaped your journey?
Yeah. So I originally started back in college. I had a friend that was a property manager, and she offered me a job as a leasing agent at an apartment complex because I was a dog groomer at the time and was not making enough money to pay my bills. So she offered me a position the first day that I started. The maintenance supervisor and his help both quit. And so I'm the type of person that, I just help with whatever needs to get handled. So I took over without any context or any experience, took over the turns of the apartments, which for people that aren't familiar just means getting the carpet cleaned or replaced, getting all the punch list items handled, getting it painted. So I took over the coordination of all of that work, which essentially is, project management. So I got a little taste of that. That didn't have to handle that for too much longer because, it was like a month or two and someone was hired for the position, but got a taste of that. Learned after a couple years in property management that it wasn't quite for me, that the culture of the industry is very much like a middle school cheerleading squad. I just wasn't a fan of that. So, plus, there's kind of like ceilings in terms of like how far you can go and still be involved in the residents, in the everyday life of the residents. And so, what I liked about it, I wouldn't be able to do if I continued to move up in the industry. So, I had a friend that worked for a civil engineer, and through talking with her and like visiting their office and whatnot, just got interested in construction in general. And there was a position available for mechanical engineer office that was filling in for someone on maternity leave. And so I was able to fill in as a contract administrator and was able to see, plans and how the process worked for the HVAC systems and, fire suppressant systems, things like that for large towers that were being built in downtown Raleigh and in downtown Durham. And I just thought it was really cool and really interesting. Looking back on it now, I can see different parts of my childhood where I was really interested in, the built environment in general and architectural design. And so, now it all makes sense. But yeah, I just thought it was really cool when I was exposed to it in that manner. And so after that, after the lady came back and that position was wrapped up, then I continued to look in the construction space, and I became a project manager for a paint subcontractor for that did like large commercial projects. So we did like, see, I managed for the IBM projects, the IBM renovations, Lenovo. We did Walmarts across the country, which was very interesting. So through those different projects, I was able to see, how projects are managed, work directly with the GCs on those projects. And I just really liked all the coordination of it. I liked seeing how the different parts that went into creating the built environment. And so, actually, through that position, I also saw the huge disconnect between the subcontractors and the architect in terms of the communication, like on the plans. So that got me really interested in architectural design as well, and inspired me to go back to school to get my degree in architecture. So I had around 2020, spring of 2020, I went back to school and started that because I was working full time. I was kind of creeping along. So making the administrators, driving them crazy with my doing everything out of order. But then I got pregnant with my daughter, and had to make some adjustments in terms of my time. But um, still planning to finish that. Probably go back next year. But yeah, I just the I guess I'm jumping all over the place and not answering your question, but ultimately, I just have had through the positions that I had on the administrative end, just became very interested in how everything comes together. You know, the built environment is a combination of math, science, and art, and those are all things I'm really passionate about, and it's really cool to see them all go hand in hand.
Absolutely. I started doing renovations on my home and I started posting on TikTok. And there was this girl who comes up who's done a bunch of stuff for her house. And she's like, it's just large scale arts and crafts. And I was like, oh my God, yes. And I love doing that. So I started doing some stuff to my house and I was like, you're right. It is. It's just paint and fix and making it, what you want.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, in architecture school, you have to do a lot of like models and things, and like literally, you have to do arts and crafts because they want to teach you how to do everything on a smaller scale so that you can, expand those ideas to a larger scale.
That makes sense. That's actually pretty exciting. I can't wait to see. I want to catch up with you in about a year and we'll just go over your whole journey and you can tell us about it because I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I'm expecting another baby in December, so I'm hoping that when he is one, I'll be able to go back. So that would be January of 2026 will be when I'll go back. So
I get it. I personally had children at 18 and 19 years old, and it took me 10 years to get a 2-year degree because of that. I was also a single parent the whole time, but that's why I wanted to like bring you on and like talk about these things because sometimes that happens as women, and we got to readjust and pivot.
yeah, absolutely.
So it happens. But as a woman in a traditionally male dominated field, like what challenges have you faced, and like how have you overcome them?
I think the biggest challenge is perception. So when you're a strong, so in the industry, they are now more accepting of women, but it's more For most of the men in the industry, it's more of in positions like accounting or contract administration or secretary, someone that answers the phones. Um, when you're a person that is in a project manager position or like a director of operations position, like I've been, they have a hard time taking certain direction. It's also interesting because I think it's a cultural thing, because the the people in the field that are doing the work, they do not have an issue with taking direction from a woman. It's the guys that are sitting at the desk next to you that have an issue with taking direction from a woman. So there's a huge issue with, like I said, perception. And I can, as a woman, you can deliver something in the exact same way that a man would, and a man would be considered assertive, and the woman's considered a bitch, for lack of a better word. um, and so that is very difficult to navigate, especially when you're a very direct person like I am. I It's very hard for me to slow things down to give it the type of fluff that it needs, for certain people to have it coming from a woman, for them to be receptive of it. So I think that's the biggest thing. I'm still learning how to overcome that.
I completely understand. That was actually one of my biggest things is finding contractor or subcontractors to do the work that didn't have a problem with the fact that, I'm a girl. Can you share a specific project that tested your skills and resilience? Like, what did you learn from that experience?
Oh, yeah. So, ironically, the hardest project that I've ever done was called the Learning Experience. And it was a daycare in North Raleigh near Triangle Town Center.
Yes.
That's hilarious. Yeah. So, that was when I was managing for the paint company. And there was a combination of factors that made it very difficult. First of all, the person that had estimated the projects, that was a different department, they did so very poorly, and so not everything was accounted for, but we had made commitments to certain things that we couldn't make changes on. And then the other thing was, labor availability. I don't remember the specifics of why we had issues at that point in time, but the people that would normally be doing the work for us weren't available. And so the pricing of the labor was different, the quality of the labor was different. So we ended up, I think, having to we we painted most of it, and then I think we had to go back and repaint it again. I don't remember the specifics, but I think the biggest thing I learned during that process was patience, number one. Slowing down, not letting your emotions get involved, because that was the first project that I had ever worked on where I didn't meet or exceed the profit goals. And so, having patience, not letting emotions get involved, trying to be strategic in terms of, where can we bring in other work that can be priced properly so that we can, try to recoup some of our expenses on the project. So yeah, the learning experience was quite the learning experience.
Completely understand. And that's part of owning a business is like sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and you take that gamble. It's just the way it is.
Absolutely.
So, how do you balance the demands of running a construction business with personal life, and what strategies do you use to maintain that balance?
I mean, really, it's all about prioritizing. That's part of why I started my own company, was so that I could have more autonomy over my own schedule. It was a lot harder to show up for my family in the way that I needed to when I had to be sitting at a desk for a certain amount of time. And so that's probably the biggest strategy. was just, starting my own company. But yeah, since doing that, it's all about prioritizing and, making sure I'm putting proper significance to what needs to get done to keep the business running, to keep our clients happy, versus making sure that I'm showing up for my family in certain ways and, spending quality time with my daughter and making sure that I'm satisfying the whole point of starting my business to begin with, which was so that I could, be with my family.
I get that. I do, because that's a lot of the reason why I started my business too, is so that I had control over my own schedule, especially being a single parent. Wanted to make sure that I could be there for them and do the things I need to do.
Yeah.
What role do mentorship and networking play in your career, and how have they influenced your growth as an entrepreneur?
Oh, they're huge. They're one of the biggest parts. So I'm very lucky that one of my previous employers is has become a really great mentor to me. They are they started as a smaller construction company, specializing in structural repairs, and I started working for them and created processes on the administrative side that allowed for them to be able to grow and, take on more business, make the jobs more efficient, make sure that the payments were actually coming in, things like that. And so they've kind of returned the favor in terms of, investing in me and making sure that they remain a resource for me even as I've branched off on my own and doing my own thing. So I really appreciate having them as a resource. They help with construction things. So if there's something that I haven't encountered before, I can reach out to them and say, hey, what do I need to do about this? Or what do I need to consider with this? And if they don't know exactly what needs to be done for it, they can at least point me in the right direction. And that's really helpful. And I think makes me that much more valuable to the clients that I'm serving as well, because it's not just me and my brain and what I can, Google. They're like an extension of what I can provide. And then they also help with general business things too. So, you know, helping me strategize with what types of business to take on, um, how to navigate business in general. And then networking has been huge as well. I do a lot of BNI meetings. I'm waiting until baby stuff settles down to actually join a group because of the time commitment. But I, over the past year or so, have been going to as many visitor days as I can to see, what different groups are out there, establish connections, make myself that much more valuable to whatever group I join when I join it. So
Very
to me,
important that you mentioned that too, because you got to find the group that works with you and for you and your business as well. Because I have been in some BNI groups before that just were not a good fit.
yeah,
And it took being in there for like 6 months to go, oh, wait a second, this maybe doesn't work out for me.
yeah, absolutely. I'm really glad that it kind of worked out this way versus because, I agree with the structure of BNI and the purpose behind BNI. And so I was very eager to join right away. And because of the time commitment, so I submitted an application, and then because of the time commitment, didn't pull the final trigger yet. And so I'm kind of glad that it happened that way, because I don't think that the original group that I had in mind would be the best fit for me for a number of reasons. And so um, being able to visit the different groups has really helped me understand like what to look for, what I need from other people, and what I can provide to other people as well. And, I really, so outside of the actual, referral setup that's within BNI, I just really appreciate how encouraging it is. So to me, it's like business church. You go once a week You get to be around like-minded people that have similar, business goals, and you get re-enthused for what you're out here doing things for. And so I really appreciate that. And it's been outside of just what I've gained in terms of actual business for my company, it has been really fulfilling, for myself as well.
Absolutely. I think that's what networking groups do for me as well. I get like a renewed sense of energy every time I go to one, and I'm like, yes, we're all doing the same thing. We're going to go
Mhm.
out there and be energized. It's perfect. And BNI has the little at the end of the meeting where they give you like a little quote, so you even feel more, you're like, yes, I love that. So that's kind of one of the things that I always look forward to. My next question is, how do you approach leadership on the job site, and what qualities do you think are essential for effective team management?
I think the biggest thing is just showing respect to others, because especially in construction, just because I'm the one that is directing something, or I'm the one that, found the business, or whatever the dynamic may be, it doesn't mean that I'm the one that knows everything.
Yeah.
The I think that the guys that are doing the work often, society views them as like lesser than like the people that have college degrees or that are sitting behind a desk. And I can't tell you how many people that I've met that work in the field that are brilliant, and they can, typically speak two languages. They can, understand very intense engineering, and then they can also execute that. Whereas typically the person sitting behind the desk can do two of those four things. So I think that the guys in the field, they are really creative and they really know what they're doing. They have, if you're working with good people, they have, really good attention to detail. And so just because I'm the one that brought the business in, that doesn't mean that I'm better than them. And so I think that as a leader and someone in the position that I'm in, it's just about having respect for them and then showing that respect to them as well.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that because I'm a house cleaner and some people want to look down on me because what I do. And it's like, but you have to understand that I know chemicals that you don't
Mhm.
know and which ones to mix, which ones don't, which ones work on
Strategy.
what surface. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that. Can you discuss the importance of diversity in the construction industry and how you advocate for inclusivity within your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is one of the reasons why I wanted to start my own company. So, being a woman in this industry, I've seen firsthand how a lot of women, and minorities and those that are part of the LGBT community, they're not given the same level of respect as other demographics in terms of communication, knowledge, pricing, even. And so that is something that I feel like is really important to address. And I feel like the way that I can address that is by providing better service to, those groups of people. And I just feel like there's not a lot of resources for those demographics to be able to have somewhere that they can get these services from and still feel comfortable.
What are some misconceptions about the construction industry that you'd like to dispel, particularly regarding women in the field?
Hmm. Um, I don't know. That's a hard one. I mean, I think it kind of goes back to, what I was saying about perception of women and the difference between assertiveness and bitchiness. I think that's probably the biggest thing. I don't know. That's a hard question.
No, I completely understand. That's kind of something I fumbled with a little bit because I was trying to figure out how to, close that gap myself. What advice would you give to young women aspiring to enter the construction industry or start their own business?
I think that it is all about connections, and obviously you need to have the knowledge. You need to work with other people. I don't think that I could have studied for the test and taken the test and done this work and started this business without having the time that I worked in the industry, with other people and seeing how the engineers do things, how the architects do things, how the different subcontractors do things. um, Working for another general contractor to see all that that entails. So I think it's essentially shadowing experience, and then also the connections that you make. You can't perform a project without people to do the work. So, that's one thing that I've prioritized over the past 5 years that I've been in the industry, was just collecting people in a spreadsheet that I can reach out to, for different resources or for different purposes. So I think I think experience and connections are the two biggest things.
No, absolutely agree with you on that because if you don't have the connections, you almost don't have anything at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very important. So, how do you handle conflict or challenges that arise on job sites, and what strategies do you use to resolve them effectively?
I think that the biggest thing that I've learned, and it was something that I've learned the hard way, was trying to remove my emotions out of everything. Stereotypically, as women, we involve our emotions in everything that we do. And I just learned that even if I watch a male counterpart do the same thing, like I said, it's not always going to be as effective if I react that way. And I also don't feel like, it's not effective. It's not as effective in terms of how it's received, but it's also not as effective in terms of how I operate either. So if I'm able to remove the level of emotion out of my responses and out of my reactions, then I'm able to think more clearly and be perceived better as well. And I've learned a lot to that even though I may be valid in saying something or reacting a certain way, that may not always serve the situation that I'm in. So I have a subcontractor that I was trying out, and he's not been very great, for a number of reasons. And of course, being a previous paint project manager, I'm very familiar with the fact that everyone wants to blame the painter. Everyone that comes before them wants to blame the painter, because they're usually the last ones on site besides the cleaners. So, there were some issues in his work, and the very first, and I had already talked with the painter, and we made a joke about that concept of everyone blaming the painter. And the very first thing that this subcontractor said to me after I asked him if he could come address those things was blaming the painter for what happened, when it was absolutely, there's no way it could have been the painter's fault. And so, right away I wanted to respond with, here's A, B, and C of why it's not the painter's fault and why it's your fault. But that was just going to make him feel more defensive. And ultimately, I just needed him to come back on site and handle what needed to be handled. And so I just put that in my back pocket, vented to my husband about it, and just kept the conversation with him more straightforward of what actually needed to happen to get everything taken care of. And It's taken me a long time to be able to develop those skills because, um, I'm a very type A person. Like, I want you to know you're wrong when you're wrong. So, developing that and being able to recognize when that needs to happen has been a long challenge that I'm getting a lot better at.
Understood. I'm still working on that, and I've only been in business about 5 years. And I have a system where I have my cleaners broken out in two different categories. So, like, if something goes wrong, I know exactly who did it because I was trying to mitigate some of that, oh, well, it wasn't me. I know
Mhm.
that you do dusting. This was a dusting related thing. So, it had to be you.
Hold on one second. My phone's about to die. So let me grab a charger real quick.
Okay.
Sorry, one more second.
So, what have been some of your proudest achievements as a general contractor, and how have they shaped your identity as an entrepreneur?
I think being able to recognize when to pivot in my business has been one of my best achievements. Um, so, I mentioned that I have experience with design and architecture school. And so, one thing that I'm able to provide to my clients is getting their project ready for permitting. So, instead of them having to pay, you know, $4,000 to go to an architectural firm or a drafter to get the proper paperwork for their project, I'm able to put together a basic floor plan, 3D renderings if they need it for design like decisions, or if we need it so the contractor can properly price the project, or if like an HOA needs to see what someone's going to look like to in order to approve something. And then I'm able to partner with engineers and surveyors to put together a full packet that is going to be sufficient for pricing and for any permitting that needs to happen. And so, one thing that I've one thing that I've done is started offering that service to other contractors as well. So if they're, essentially my competitors, they're doing remodeling work as well. I have, I'm working with them to help them get their clients ready for their projects. And so, to me, I feel like that's a really great achievement, is being able to recognize that, pivot of my time efforts, uh, to be able to offer something that my community needs.
I love that. I never thought about that. When I was taking the thing, I thought to myself, I'm more essentially like project managing. And then now that I've talked to you, I'm realizing that there are so many more levels to it than that.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
great. Thank you for that insight. I really appreciate that. Last question. Looking to the future, what are your aspirations for your business, and how do you envision the construction industry evolving into the coming years?
So I want to, for my business, I'd like to move into like purchasing properties and flipping them, either for renting or for selling, and working towards things like getting a warehouse where we can stock materials and make things a little bit more cheaper for our clients by buying in bulk. And then um, in terms of the industry, I really just hope that it becomes